Hey guys, I'm Chalena,
And I'm Courtney.
and this is Mysteries at the Coffee Shop.
Today we're going over the mysterious disappearance and homicide of Connie Beard. This is a 25-year-old case that is currently still open. Unfortunately, the older the case gets, the colder it gets. There's a lot of online speculations about this case. Some are true, some are just rumors, and some are sus. With that being said, let's get into it.
Right, so Connie Beard was a 17-year-old Ringgold High School student. Her family resided in my hometown of Ringgold, Georgia. She lived in the Sherwood Forest area, which is around the Graysville, Boynton area. She was described as a Spitfire who had a heart of gold. Now, on July 17th, 1998, Connie drives from her home in Ringgold, Georgia, down to her boyfriend Corey Butler's apartment in Dalton, Georgia. The exact address is 1600 Puryear Drive. This is about a 25-30 minute drive. She gets there at around 11:30 p.m. Her boyfriend has to leave work to let her in the apartment, and once he gets there, he and Connie get into a pretty heated argument. I'm assuming it's about him having to leave work to let her in. Um, he lets her in, and then he leaves to go back to work. Connie then heads inside and makes a phone call to her aunt because she wanted to make sure her aunt made it home safely from her sister's house. In an interview with her sister, Bridget Shirley, she stated, "My aunt got a phone call from Connie to check to see if my aunt made it home. Then my aunt said that Connie told her, 'Look, I'll have to back because someone's knocking at the door.'" Bridget said they never found out who was knocking on the door and they never heard from or saw Connie ever again. And side note, it is unknown when Corey Butler returns from work, but on July 18th, 1998, Corey leaves for work again at 4:30 a.m. At this time, Connie is still asleep in bed when he leaves his apartment. When he returns back from work at around 7:30 a.m., she's gone. After a couple hours, she still hasn't responded to her pager, and he and her family file a missing persons report with the Whitfield County Sheriff Department. They were unfortunately shrugged off, and Connie's case was treated as a runaway case rather than a missing persons case. Now, I do want to note that her family stated there was no way she was a runaway because she had a $100 check from her Chattanooga employer that, most people would have picked up, but she just didn't pick it up. Most runaways would have picked that up for extra cash. So 3 months go by, and on October 11th, 1998, Connie's body is found by Dalton utility workers at approximately 9 o'clock a.m. They noticed a pair of white tennis shoes out near the woods and they went to go investigate. That's where they found them attached to her skeletal remains in a shallow grave. The area where her body was found is about 30 minutes from her boyfriend's apartment, right between Dalton and Chatsworth.
So sad.
Right.
So now that we know her story, let's get into some theories. And I just want to go ahead and say that these theories are completely detached from any facts or, actual events that happened. These are just speculations, theories, people have come up with. So there's an entire Reddit thread involving Connie Beard. But most of the information sends you to recent articles from 2020, and they don't give you that much information at all. You went out of your way to search archive newspaper articles, and you didn't even know if anything would turn up or be helpful for this.
Right. I mean, when I was researching this case, I was literally losing sleep. So initially I thought, cuz in the last podcast at the end I was like, "Oh, we may be able to get, you know, some of the case records." And unfortunately, the case is actually still open, so I'm not able to get a hold of them. So at that point, I'm left searching the internet and I basically lose sleep over this case. I had to stop. There are some days where I had to stop because I was so overworked, but lo and behold, Google was like, "Hey, like there's Google Archives, you can look at old newspapers." I search all the newspapers in 1998 from honestly from July until October to find something on her, and there was nothing up until the October 21st edition from 1998 that had her on the front page because her body was found. And that's where I got like most of the information from. So it's a little bit more insightful than like the Reddit pages and stuff,
Mhm.
just because like, all the theories from there was based off of recent articles and they're
Mhm.
not quite true.
No. So on the Reddit page, they had said that she was brutally raped and murdered, but her remains, when they were found, were skeletals, and there were no news articles supporting this claim. This was something on the Reddit thread. So it seems like someone was just making up that information to attempt to fill in the blanks. So they put out false information. Reddit users also speculated that whoever was at the door that night in July was the one that killed her. She got the knock on the door and had to end the phone call. But that doesn't really fit the timeline that's given. Um, there are a lot of other speculations that are mentioned within this Reddit page, but again, there's no facts to back up any of these, and it seems like all of these are also an attempt to fill in the blanks of the tragic loss of Connie. People get on there and unfortunately can say whatever they want, whether it's true or not.
Right, right. Um, yeah, and the one thing that I thought was really strange that nobody seemed to mention, because I guess, like, again, they were going off of recent articles. No one had saw the paper from 1998 because it was printed out in 1998 and it's 2023. What I thought was really weird was Corey's work schedule. So he went back to work at 11:30 after he went and let her in the apartment and then went back again at 4 a.m. Like, when does a man sleep, first of all?
Mm-hmm.
And so that morning, the morning she goes missing, he's gone from 4 a.m. to 7:30. So you're at work for only 3 hours. And then, like, in those 3 hours is when she went missing. So it just seems really off to me. But
Mm-hmm.
he's not on the prime suspect list. And I'm assuming it's because he has an alibi at work. So I don't know. It was just really weird. I had my suspicions initially, but if he was not on the top of the suspect list, and I'm assuming they went and checked with his work. And I just want to say that that is a fucking weird ass work schedule.
Yeah, it's
Like,
really strange when you first read it. You're like, what is this?
when does he sleep? When does he eat? When does he shower? Like, does he get to do any of those
Mm-hmm.
things?
So another question we have is, was the front door unlocked? Like if the speculation of like whoever knocked on the door is her killer, did she open the door voluntarily because was it someone she knew? Did someone just come in because the door was unlocked? Or was the door locked and she opened it because it was someone she knew? Like that raises a very, piqued interest question.
Yeah. So here's the thing though, like if somebody came knocking at my door at 4 in the morning, I
Mm-hmm.
would not be opening that damn door.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not happening. Like, if you came at my door at 4 a.m., Courtney, I would be like, listen, you either coming in here and you taking a nap or you fucking leaving because I'm going
Yeah.
the fuck back to sleep. Like, you could not get me up at 6:30 in the morning in high school when I was 17. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
I
it's
just think
very
that's weird.
yeah. And there wasn't a sign of struggle in the apartment that was noted in anything that we read. It was almost just like she had vanished, which is really, really sad.
It it is. And like what's crazy is like, this isn't like a whole big ordeal. Like, she's
Mm-hmm.
just going to spend the night at her boyfriend's house. Um, so how did she disappear and who took her? Like, who has beef with a 17-year-old girl? Was she lured out of the apartment? And how is she found like 30 minutes away? Like, it just seems a little crazy to me. Um, I don't know. I just think like, there are speculations that it was somebody that she did know, but like, even if she knew them, like, who the neighbors didn't report anybody coming in or anything at 4 a.m. then of course, like, it's 4 a.m., so they're asleep.
Right.
But, like, who has to knock at the door for her to willingly go out and just
Yeah.
not take any of her stuff and leave? And then, if it was somebody she didn't know, how did she get lured out of the apartment?
Mm-hmm.
And
It
that's the
also,
thing with the unlocked door. Sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, that's exactly what I was gonna say. It comes back to,
Right.
is the door unlocked?
Right. Because, like, okay, if she, if it was somebody she knew, right? And
Mm-hmm.
she knew she was leaving with them, I feel like she would have locked the apartment door behind her. Now, if somebody she didn't know that lured her out, like, let's say, I know she had a heart of gold, and what's really shitty is that there are people who take advantage of that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so let's say she goes out of the apartment, right? Because somebody needs help. She doesn't think to lock the door.
Right.
Right, because, like, I guess, like, and then here's the thing too, is like, if her boyfriend had to let her in, I'm assuming she doesn't have a key.
Right.
So that's a little bit crazy to me. I don't know. I don't know. It's just it's so strange to me. Like, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
things are adding up. How do you lose a 17-year-old girl? And if you look up the address, it's not like an apartment complex. It's almost like a little duplex.
Right.
So how do you go missing when you're in that close of a vicinity to other people? You know what I mean?
Yeah, nobody hears or sees a thing. Like, it's just really like poof, like, very strange.
Right. And the fact that, like, she her body was found 30 minutes away, almost out of Dalton. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say her body was found along Brackett Ridge Road. There
Mm-hmm.
are 3 ways to get to Brackett Ridge Road from that apartment. And I looked this up, Google Maps, and granted, like, the roads might have changed, but there is one that goes around Dalton, like, kind of near the suburbs. The other one goes straight through Dalton, and the other one goes straight into the rural abyss, is what I call it. The middle of butt fuck nowhere. Um, Nobody in sight. It's all rural. Now,
Mm-hmm.
and the thing about Brackett Ridge Road is I tried to look and see if there was any other bodies found along that road. I was just trying to find a connection. I was just trying to find something for her, right?
Yeah.
And I nothing turns up. I get nothing. And I don't even get, like, missing persons reports from the time that
Mm-hmm.
she was missing. Um so the crazy thing about that road is, though, I tried to look up the history of it cuz, like, again, I was trying to see if any other bodies were found there, like, if it could possibly be a dumping ground for a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
And Brackett Ridge Road had this subreddit, and on their Reddit page, it said, locals tend to stay away from Brackett Ridge Road if there were anything illegal. If anything illegal was going on, it was on that road,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that road is all private property. So, from what I've read, Brackett Ridge Road belonged to a Native American family that lived there. I think they were mixed, but it belonged to the Brackett. That whole land belongs to the Brackets,
Mm-hmm.
and they got sent up to the Trail of Tears, and then some came back down, and reclaimed that land. And that's why it's called Brackett Ridge Road. So all that land belongs to that family. And they say you do not go into the woods at night or by yourself. You don't go there without a bracket, or bad things will happen. It didn't specify bad things, but some people said when you drive down that road at night, you do not stop. You do not stop. So it's a little weird to me that her body was found on a road that locals claim to, be dangerous. And I'm wondering if they put her body there specifically because they knew locals wouldn't go there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or, I mean, obviously, like, people are going to stay away. Or did they, like, put her there to go back and revisit her body? Because, like, my train of thought is she was buried in a shallow grave. So I feel like this was thought out. They had to have shovels like
Mm-hmm.
in their trunk or something, like because they buried her body there, and like she was gone for 3 months, so nobody knows if she was held captive or not.
Right.
And for her remains to be skeletal in the summer, like it would make sense that they were skeletal because they were exposed to the elements, kind of.
Right.
Um,
And
and
it's
in the
really
hot,
hot.
yeah, oh my god, in the hot Georgia summer heat,
Mm-hmm.
I would
Yep.
say a body would decompose that fast.
Yeah.
But my train of thought is like they thought through it enough to dig her a shallow grave, but they didn't bury her shoes. And I'm wondering if they left her shoes stuck out so that they could go back and revisit the body and revisit their crimes, which is, I don't know, from what I've looked up, a normal thing with like people who start to, murder a lot of people
Yeah.
is they like to go back and see that they did that. It's
Yeah.
like some gratification for them.
It's really sick.
It is really sick. And again, like we don't have answers, but it was somebody who like thought it through and they
Mm-hmm.
digged her a grave. So that's crazy enough to me. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's it's very it was very, very hard to try to find evidence for this, because like what
Yeah.
enemies does a 17-year-old girl have?
Mm-hmm. She's just a kid, like her whole life was getting started. Like she had everything in front of her.
Right, right. And like it, because every which way you look at this, it just seems like there's a dead end, like there's not an
Yeah.
answer. So it just
Yeah.
makes me think that maybe this was somebody she didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Because if there are no connections within her friend group, her family group, like no connections,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Because here's the thing,
Yeah.
like you and I have like researched a lot of serial killers and stuff, and
Yeah.
a lot of times, like, the people that they killed, like they start with people they know, right? And
Yeah.
then after that, they start choosing their victims kind of like randomly in the same day.
Yeah.
I mean, they're meticulous about it, but like they know enough. So I guess what I'm getting at is, was it an enemy of her boyfriend that she didn't know and they just knew his work schedule and they knew that she was going to be, in that apartment by herself for those 3 hours? Or was it someone who was watching her all day? Like they just saw her, and they're like, that's the perfect victim. And they watched that apartment all day to see when her boyfriend was leaving and then took that chance. And then again, there was no sign of a struggle. However, if somebody has a weapon or a gun put up to you, are you going to struggle?
You're right. And especially if it's, larger men, and a small or 17-year-old girl, like how much of a struggle can you put up?
And that's my thing. Like, here's another thing, too, is like, I know Chattanooga has a history of sex trafficking rings. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they were prominent in the 90s. They might have been. And
I'm
if
sure
they
they
were,
were,
like, yeah,
unfortunately.
I'm sure they were, because they're still busting rings here in Chattanooga.
Mm-hmm.
So my another train of thought is like, did they get her for that? And of course, like, she was described as a Spitfire. Did she fight back and they decided that she was not worth it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's also hard to tell, like, did she die the same day she was kidnapped?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows. And of course, like, it's 1998, so there's not any like cameras or anything.
Mm-hmm. It's so unfortunate. It's really hard for the family. Is like it's 25 years later and still nobody knows, any more than they did in, that October when she was found.
Exactly. And like, one of the things that I thought about, I was like, I wish that they could go search for bodies in Brackett Ridge Road, because I have a feeling there's more out there. There's 100% more bodies out there. Because some of the brackets on that subreddit were saying, like, they had family members who, like, they definitely killed people and, like, buried them out on the bracket ridge. Now it's private
Oh,
property
wow.
and they can't look unless there's, like, a reason to.
Right.
But, like, you can't just go off of, like, a Reddit post, you know what I mean? Because
Exactly.
that's not, yeah, it's not enough to grant a warrant.
Yeah. No.
And, like, secondly, like, where are they gonna look? Because that ridge is just entirely, like, miles of wilderness.
Yeah.
But I would think if there was a serial killer, I feel like they would live on Brackett Ridge Road and they'd be hiding the bodies out there because how would they know? How would they know?
Yeah. Which I'm not from that area, so I'm very unfamiliar with where it's at and what the lore is around it, but it's very scary.
Yeah, I mean, there's not like a whole website about the lore. It's just that if you talk to locals, they're like, yeah, that's a creepy ass road. Yeah, just don't stop, you know? Like that be a road that you see like a not deer on or like something fishy.
Yeah, some scary.
Or you just drive by and you're like, I'm gonna mind my own damn business.
Mm-hmm.
Cause if not, then I feel like you're gonna get yourself in a whole bit of trouble. And then again,
Yeah.
like on that subreddit as well, um, they said that a bunch of illegal stuff happened there that they would know of, like teenagers would go there and do drugs or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, I do have a question for you. So, do you think this investigation, like, do you think it was skewed because, I mean, it went over 3 different counties?
Yeah.
Like, so there's
That's
Catoosa, where she's from, Murray County, and Whitfield County.
yeah, that's really hard because I feel like once you start going, especially in, 1998, once you start going over county lines and, stuff like that, things go missing, parts get left out, egos get in the way a lot of times when you have multiple counties working on a case because, one wants to be the one that solves it, then the other one does, and then they withhold information from each other. And even if that didn't happen, it's 1998, so things were a lot less efficient than they are now. So I feel like a lot of information could have got lost. And I feel like that this is a case that really needs to be revisited like now and find some answers. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
there's I don't know, it just frustrates me so bad that the family is without answers and her friends as well. 17 years old, like, not only did her family lose her, all her friends at school lost her, her teachers, her, everything. And it's 25 years later, and you're telling me we don't have any information about this? Like, come on, let's get it together. Let's all collaborate.
Right.
Let's get answers.
I mean, I'm sure they have they have definitely figured out cases way older than that. But
Absolutely.
you want to know something interesting that I looked up? I was like, well, did they find any fibers or DNA evidence on the skeletal remains? Which,
Mm-hmm.
it's wishful thinking, but
Right.
I was like, you got to find something. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I think the first person convicted and put on death row with evidence via DNA,
Mm-hmm.
um, that was 1996. Only 2 years afterwards did she disappear. So I'm wondering if like a lot of that technology was still new and coming through. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know whether or not they could have used that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And especially with, Catoosa and all of them being smaller counties, compared to like Los Angeles or something like that, they may not even had, access to such advancements yet. I'm not sure when, DNA technology did hit, worldwide, but I'm sure it wasn't, 2 years after the first conviction was, because you just think about how many
Right.
people didn't trust it yet, how many police forces thought it was just like hokey or something. And I'm not saying it's the police Force's fault at all. I wasn't born in 1998, so they could have tried, as hard as they possibly could. I just feel like it should be revisited now in 2023.
I think so as well. And when I was trying to gather more information about this case, my mother and my grandmother watched the news all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
this wasn't something that they heard about through the
Yeah.
news. Um,
Yeah. I
but
feel like it,
I would think, yeah, I think it would slip through the cracks because, like,
yeah.
you either read the newspaper or you watch the news on TV. But if you missed the news that night, then you
Yep.
missed out.
Yep. We compare it to now. If, one of our friends went missing, we'd have it blasted all over Facebook. It'd be shared in,
Absolutely.
500 different counties and cities and everything else. But, in 1998, they only had that night's news, and there was no coming back. I'll watch the news tonight because I recorded it. There was no such thing. So either you watched the news that night or you bought a paper. And if you didn't do either, then you never heard about it because we didn't have Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all of these, social medias to really spread it far and wide.
Right. I was like, oh, I don't. Going back and thinking about it, I don't think they had a lot of social media actually at all. I
Yeah.
the 2000s had like what, MySpace?
Yeah, and most people in 1998, especially in smaller counties and stuff where they're not as wealthy, didn't even have computers and phones in 1998. Some did, but like if you were a middle class, lower caste family, you probably didn't have, you may have had one family computer and it was not used for social media. It was used for, looking things up.
When was Google made? I don't even know.
Um,
Like I feel like, yeah, I feel like this case would have been really hard back in the 90s.
yeah, it's so sad that we they 1998 Google was formed. So Google
Oh,
just
that year.
launched in that year, and
That year.
we're so there. Social media has its ups and downs. It's a whole nother topic, but we are fortunate enough to live in a society where if something tragic happens, someone goes missing, someone's killed, we can air it out everywhere. And I think we take that for granted just a little bit by looking at the downsides of social media, but it can come in really helpful when like tragedy strikes and we need it, spread far and wide. And it's just so sad that,
Absolutely.
in 1998 that she didn't have that. So like probably that county was as far as her tragedy got spread, so there's no outside counties being able to help or even knowing about it.
Right. And the thing that bothers me the most is I feel like with so little evidence, was this disappearance, homicide, was it thought through? I feel like it was thought through.
Yeah.
And they haven't caught this person. It's been 25 years. So this person who murdered this 17-year-old girl,
Yep.
there's a possibility that they're coaching your children's soccer games, they're sitting next to you at church, they're
Yep.
working next to you at the office. Like, we don't know who it is.
No. And if they're not still out there, then they died knowing that they got away with murder, which is just disgusting.
It is disgusting. Yes, I literally, I don't, when I was looking up this case, I felt so much rage because
Mhm.
I, who who the fuck looks at a 17-year-old girl and like that? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? People are disgusting. And again, I'll say it multiple times. Like, I will research cryptids and monsters all day long, but I really think the real monsters are people. Like,
Absolutely.
how it bothers me that this person got away with this because this 17-year-old girl deserved the world.
Yep.
She honestly did. She had her whole life
Yep.
ahead of her.
She did.
And it's shitty that this person got to live out the rest of their lives with no consequences of their
Yep.
actions. I
Yep.
think it's important that we get her story out and that
Agreed.
people know, like, hey, whoever did this is a piece of shit. I hope they find you. I hope you get trialed for this. I
Mm-hmm.
know it's going to be hard to find evidence.
Yeah.
Um, Do you have any other thoughts or any other words about this whole topic today?
We just need to remember that her family never got the proper closure and be respectful and aware that her family is still grieving this 25 years later and they don't have the answers. And someone 25 years ago made the conscious decision to take the life of a 17-year-old. And whether they're still out there or they have since passed, they did a heinous, terrible thing and the family deserves answers. So, I think that it's a shame on people spreading false information. And even though, no matter how bad you want answers, it doesn't give you the right to spread rumors and false information. It just skews even more things and hurts the family. So I think everybody just needs to, be respectful when we put this out, be respectful when we make posts about it. This is still an open investigation. And just, really think of her family when you make comments and go to post about Connie Beard.
Right, right. I understand wanting to help, but I
Mm-hmm.
think, creating all this online speculations, as he said, she said, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if it quite helps in that case. I
No.
know what will help is if you or anybody, if you have any information about this case, anything at all,
Yep.
please contact the GBI. Please contact Murray County Police Department, Whitfield County Police Department, and let them know. Like if you hear something
Mm-hmm.
that maybe your parents said, maybe your neighbor said, you know, back in 1998. I don't know if anyone will remember that.
Right.
But if you know something, please, please, please contact the GBI. We have their number written down,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay,
Yes.
what is their number?
So even if it seems insignificant or it doesn't matter, anything would help. GPI's number is 404-244-2600. So if you know anything at all, please contact that number.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And then, just keep in mind that all the theories and stuff that we went over
Mm-hmm.
is just us trying to, you know, shoot some theories out, like try to
Mm-hmm.
figure out what's going on. Of course, like we would not spread it all over social media as fact
No,
now,
no.
um, because it's not fact. And again, that was the hard part about researching this case is like most information people who made videos on her got was from Reddit, but like I'm sorry, I can't trust Reddit. The only
No.
one I really trusted was like the news articles, which is why this episode is so much shorter than usual. Is like there's
Yeah.
not a lot of information. And it's just us trying to come up with theories, trying to figure out what happened to her. But again, if you know something, please contact the GBI, please contact Murray County, please contact Whitfield County if you know anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that concludes our episode for today. Um, we do want to let you know that we are graduated, we're out of school, so we should be doing a regular uploading schedule. And Courtney,
Yep.
what is our next episode going to be on?
Our next episode is how did we word it? Cave
The
monsters,
oh yeah,
Appalachian.
Appalachian,
Yeah.
the disappearances
Yes.
surrounding the cave systems in the United States, which is
Yes.
a little creepy. Um,
AKA cave monsters. Very scary,
yes.
terrifies me. I'm definitely going to lose some sleep over help researching on this because that is a big fear of mine. So, our next episode will be, I mean, not lighthearted, but it will be, there will be a lot of theories involved with this one and, some supernatural made up monsters, I'm sure. So,
Cryptids, we love
yep.
cryptids.
Yes.
But yeah, that is going to be our next episode. So stay
Yep.
tuned. Follow us. And again, I will say it one more time, call to action. If you know anything
Yes.
about Connie Beard's disappearance or homicide, please contact the GBI, Whitfield County, or Murray County. And that is all for today. Thank you guys so much for
Thank
tuning
you.
in. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.